I want to just say events are boring and most venues are poorly run, and I want to fix that. I want to make sure that we get only the best talent in Houston. So it doesn't have to be Houston, in fact, it could be anywhere on the planet, but we want the top 1%ers to be producing the events, and we want as many people to produce events like the rest of us 1%ers do. So that is the reason why I do what I do, is I just want to help event producers do events in a way that is memorable. We want legendary events that'll go down in history. So the events that are important, these milestone events especially, we want them to live on in history. And that's why I do what I do. What is an event? An event could be a wedding, it could be a Christmas party, it could be a rocket launch. An event could be a micro event like a roller coaster ride. An event could be a TED Talk. An event can be an outdoor festival, concert event, a festival event, sporting event, a boat trip, a birthday party, a date night. Those are the different kinds of events. What's one thing you can do to ensure that the client will be satisfied every single time? Remember this phrase and you will have a happy client almost every single time. And it is under promise and over deliver. If you can do that, you set the bar very low with the client and then you over deliver like crazy and you will have a satisfied client. Do this one thing to ensure that the event will be a success and live on forever. Plan ahead. To the extent that you have more lead time, you will have a more successful event. You give yourself a short amount of time for the planning and development of your event from its birth and conception to event delivery. You want to lengthen that amount of time as much as possible for a successful event. If you follow my framework, you'll definitely have a legendary event that will go down in history. Let's talk about the theme or the concept. You want to figure out what is the mood. Where are you taking the audience with this event? You need to determine the mood. You need to determine, is this romantic? Is this going to be a thrill ride? Is this going to be happy? Is this motivational? Is this a celebration? You need to decide what is the emotional journey that you are going to take the audience on. It's just a good ingredient that you determine ahead of time when you're planning on the mini script or the vibe of the event. You need to determine the style, the textures. Is it going to be special effects? Is it going to be colors and textures? Is there signage that you need to have? These are some style elements that you want to decide, like little food identifiers or the company logo and name on the wall. Those are style elements that you can help work with your designers or that you can do yourself. Maybe you buy it on Etsy. Maybe you get it on Amazon. But these are little style elements you need to decide ahead of time. When you begin your vendor selection, you want to make sure when you choose your vendors, first of all, you want to use insured vendors because that means that they care about their business and they're not amateurs. Certainly if it's a component that you rely on as a key element in your event. But you want to read through all of the terms with your vendors like there's no tomorrow, and you need to stick to the contract with each and every vendor. So make sure you're intimately aware of those terms with each vendor. And you also want to make sure that you use vendors that are going to help you hit all of the senses. So remember the SLAM, the sound, lights, air, music. You're probably going to want vendors that contribute to the overall vibe of the event. So keep that in mind when you choose your vendor. One of my favorite bands is Earth, Wind, and Fire. And you can use these elements to add a little spice in your event. So try to bring in elements of earth, wind, and fire into the event. So whenever I bring in earth, wind, and fire, besides making the theme of the event earth, wind, and fire, take for example fire. You could use actual fire in the fireplace. You could have candles, or you could have the colors of fire, or a special effect using the flickering of fire to simulate a fireplace that's on. The romantic amber hues of the candle as far as the lighting goes. For the earth, maybe you're actually bringing in elements of nature. So you're bringing in, some earth tones as far as the color palette that you use. Or maybe you're using actual dirt or pine cones in the centerpiece in some way. And then for the wind, maybe some outdoor or indoor elements. Maybe it's some sound effects. Maybe it's something in the air. Say you've got suspended in the air an aerialist, or maybe you've got some suspended in the air design element. Maybe it's chandeliers that you brought in for the event. Or maybe if you are doing an outdoor event that you've got skyriders in the air, or maybe you've got a crop duster that's gonna spray rose petals across the bow of the boat. Those are all things that could use the air. So earth, wind, and fire, it's just a way to maybe trigger your creative side when you're planning the design elements that go into the vibe dimension of your event. One trick that I like to do is when I'm having an event, I like to have a way to memorialize everything that went into the event from behind the scenes. So you can use this to support the memory slope later after the event has been delivered to serve as reminders, but you can put together a collection of videos and images. Maybe it's documentary style, or maybe you just record it for now, then it can be edited down later for remembrance purposes with the client and the guests, or for social media reposting after the event, or maybe years later it's something that you pull out of the old trunk to remember that event that can be edited down for other purposes later. So it is one trick that you can use to help support the memory slope and fight against the noise angle to keep the memory of the event alive, because you want the event to live on and go down in history. So let's talk about the invitation for the event. So the invitation could be emailed, it can be mailed, but you know the invitation sets the tone for the event. So the color font, the theme of the event, the title of the event, this sort of helps tailor the client journey. So you begin to prepare the audience and prepare the guests for what they might be in for. And you don't want to give up too much in the invitation, but remember there is the guest journey. So that starts when they receive the invitation. The guest journey will be leading up to the event, during the event, after the event, and then after the event, which is where the memories live. So keep in mind that the invitation will help serve as kind of the foundation for what's to come. So keep that in mind when you're planning your invitation, because like I said, you're gonna plan the event maybe in reverse, you'll reverse engineer from the memories all the way back to the planning process, and the outcome that you want needs to be well thought out beforehand and maybe weaved into the invitation. The strategy of the event and how you promote the event or how you send out the invitations, you'll have a rhythm to how you get the word out for your event. Whether it's a build-up or you're ramping up, just planting the seed with some teasers. Think of like a movie trailer, for example. The closer it gets to the actual release of the actual event date or the release of the movie, for example, might have a rhythm to it. And so you'll know based on the event that you're deciding what kind of strategy and approach you want to use when rolling up and ramping up to the event. And so keep that in mind, because sometimes the invitation is like the movie trailer, or sometimes the invitation is a flyer, starting out with a flyer and then eventually it's a jack-in-the-box that arrives in the mail for your guests to receive. Like, wow, I'm special. I got this amazing three-dimensional invitation in the mail. So you'll decide on the kind of rhythm, but it starts with the actual invitation itself, because those elements in the invitation will ultimately be weaved in and throughout your event. So the details are not always important. Details are important, but they're not always important. So just keep in mind what the whole point of the event is and focus on that. Don't lose sight of the point of the event, and then design elements will fall around the point of the event. If the point of the event is to get on the roller coaster and have a really good time and then exit through the gift shop and buy a picture of yourself, all other components and ingredients can fall by the wayside, because the point of the event is to sell the souvenir after the ride. So just keep that in mind, that the details are not always important, because I'm gonna remember maybe that one hard turn on the roller coaster, and then I get my picture of me at the final drop of the roller coaster, or that first drop of the roller coaster. Makes sense? So don't overdo it on all of the details. Focus on the details that are important, and the rest of it you can come back to later when you want to fine tune and tweak. Just get the main point of the event locked in before you focus on some of the other smaller details. When it comes to lighting, a friend of mine told me about a book by Louis Barragan. The title of the book is called The Art of Light. Read this book. It'll change the way that you look at the way lighting is done for both cinema and for events and for architecture. Check it out.